Hey, once you master this, we can move up to the Kessel run.
Bonus points for making it in less than 12 parsecs.
Yes! Thank you!
So, do I just go for it?
Yeah, whenever you're...
Alright, what is going on, guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Another week and another episode of Superman and Lois's fourth and final season, this time with episode 4 titled A Perfectly Good Wedding. This is an episode we've known about for quite a while and was the premise that I, along with many of you guys, were not too excited about. Unfortunately, episode 4 was the first, for a lack of a better term, mid-episode of the final season, focusing more on the send-off of Kyle and Chrissy, rather than the A-plots of the season with Lex Luthor. No, it was not necessarily filler, as the main plot did still move in a positive direction. However, it did act more as a bridge between the death of Superman and reign of the Superman storyline to where the show will be heading in the back half of season 4. So with all of that said, spoiler warning of course if you have not seen episode 4 of Superman and Lois's final season, but with that out of the way, let's return to this episode breakdown. Continuing the theme of this season, we pick up right where we left off at the end of the previous episode, with Lois being the last one standing outside on the farm, still mourning the death of her father after his sacrifice to save Superman. In that same breath, we hear the iconic sound of a Kryptonian flying above as Clark, dressed in his funeral attire, finally returns to Lois and the boys, giving us the long-awaited heartfelt family reunion. Roll title card, and we get a voiceover from Clark discussing his sudden death and just as quick resurrection and return to his family. Clark hammers home the theme of the entire season, which is not only the importance of family, but the fragility of life and how even with the immense power he possesses, just like a human, it can be over in an instant. Life more or less returns to normal for the Kents, Lois continues her treatments, and John's powers seem to grow more and more each day. However, Jordan's anger after hearing his mother's dire choice also remains brewing inside him. Clark is not immediately back to full strength, as his mother predicted. It seems like it will take some time for his body to fully accept Sam's heart as its own, as we see that the scar on his chest is yet to have healed. Swapping gears over to the main story of the episode, Kyle and Chrissy are getting married, and while of course it is an exciting time for the two, it also comes with some uncertainty. The big conflict throughout the episode is whether the two of them moved into things too quickly. It is further emphasized when Chrissy's mom comes to town, making her question if marriage is something she really wants right now. This storyline gave way to some great smaller character moments between Chrissy and Lois, as well as with Kyle and Clark. While Lois and Chrissy, of course, are still wrapped up in the Lex Luthor case, this more tame episode gave the two of them a chance to talk and connect more than they have in a while, and cement their friendship as one of the strongest on the show. With Clark and Kyle, we finally get to sort of see the true aftermath of Kyle learning Clark's secret, and I love how their friendship has evolved throughout the course of the show. They started off kind of at odds to now Kyle asking Clark to be his super best man at his wedding. Kind of crazy, that turn of events. I also thought the small moment of them grilling for the wedding was great, a much more down-to-earth, normal interaction before we get back to the insanity of the rest of this season. Wrapping up the wedding storyline, at the end of the day, Kyle and Chrissy realize that they rushed things and decide to slow down a bit. They are still engaged, just postponing the official wedding ceremony to a later date. I'm not sure how much more of these characters we will see throughout the remainder of the season, but I'm pretty satisfied with where the episode leaves them. A proper send-off for a couple of side characters that have been with the show since the beginning. Flying back to the Kents, one of my favorite scenes of the episode was Clark and John training in the Arctic by the site of the OG fortress. We get a great Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs shoutout as we see John once again taking very quickly to his training. This further exemplifies the dichotomy between the brothers, whereas Jordan, of course, had a much more rocky start to his superhero career than John. However, the training had to come to an abrupt end when John and Clark were flying and Clark's heart gave out on him for a second, forcing a crash that was very unlike him. Back at home, Clark and John have to have a tough conversation with Lois about Clark's limitations due to his new heart. He's not as strong, he's not healing as quickly, his senses are still dulled, his heart literally skipped a beat, and he can't quite keep up the same as he once did. Lois brings up the fact that not only does Clark now have a human heart, but the heart of a 60-year-old man, so of course he is going to have to ease his way back into things. We will discuss theories later on, however, this conversation certainly gets the gears turning about what this means for the future of Superman. Later on, John and Lois go to confront Gretchen in an effort to flip her against Luthor. When she refuses, it just only further emphasizes the threat Lex poses and the fear he instills not only in his enemies, but those who are supposed to be his allies as well. On the Jordan front, he's still struggling with the message Lex showed him last episode, where Lois chose to save Jonathan over him. It's weighing heavily on Jordan, especially after the first couple of episodes he had with not being able to save his father and being beaten so easily by Lex. It's certainly making Jordan feel unworthy of the title of Superboy. This is further added to by Jordan's conversation with Sarah, which was probably the best interaction the two of them have had in a while, where she helps him through the feelings he's having surrounding what it truly means to be a hero and if he can live up to that expectation. Probably the best heart-to-heart character moment of the entire episode was when Lois and Jordan finally discussed that phone call with everything out on the table. Of course, Jordan was upset and hurt by his mother's choice, but in the end, he wasn't necessarily mad that Lois chose Jonathan over him. He was upset that she was right in her decision. At the time, Jonathan did not have any powers, and Jordan did. He had the best chance of defending himself, and Jonathan was much more vulnerable. I loved the reconciliation between the two, and you could really tell Lois only made the choice she did because she loves both her sons more than anything in the world, and she would do whatever it takes to protect them, especially in the absence of Clark. During Kyle and Chrissy's wedding reception, Jordan and John hear people in trouble in a fire in Metropolis. Jordan tells John that he should go face this threat on his own. Not only has he been training as a firefighter, but he is more than capable of the save, and someone needs to stay behind and make sure their parents are safe. At the fire in Metropolis, John makes his first superhero saves until he is once again confronted by Gretchen, as well as a new threat, his first supervillain, that being Discount Heatwave. He was of course sent by Lex to cause some chaos and dispose of his now traitorous underling with Gretchen. John definitely had his work cut out for him until just in the nick of time, Superman returns complete with a brand new suit. Clark absorbs all of the smoke around him, walking closer and closer to the threat, blocking the fire blasts until it knocks the villain back, saving John and everyone else in the building. Not bad for a dead guy. Back at home, John and Clark debrief the save to Lois and Jordan, and this is where we receive probably the biggest piece of character growth for Jordan all season. He formally passes the mantle of Superboy, suit and all, over to Jonathan, telling him that he believes in him and that he can be the hero that Jordan just isn't ready to become until he finds himself. Wrapping up the episode, Lois and Clark discuss their new normal. Now both of them have scars from their respective battles with mortality. And it is because of those scars that they are still here and have come out on the other side stronger and with a new sense of appreciation for the lives they lead. The final stinger for the episode, the phone on the nightstand starts blowing up with a new article that was posted by all of the major news outlets, simply titled "Superman Lives." Theories for this week, the big one is of course what is going to happen to Clark now that we have seen General Lane's heart is causing him some trouble. Clark is considerably weaker and has limitations that he never had to worry about previously. Does this mean that Sam's heart is not the forever fix for Superman, and we are going to have to eventually find a more permanent solution? This brings us back to the theory that Lex destroyed a fake heart of Clark's or even had Brainiac make copies that will come in handy when they are needed the most. No Lex this week, which was definitely noticeable. However, he is back next week, and from the episode 5 trailer, along with the mid-season trailer, it seems that we are in for even more peak Luthor, especially after he goes clean-shaven and hops into his Lexo suit. Another big theory I've been continually bringing up in streams, shout out to Darren and the rest of the crew. However, what if we eventually see a Superman and Lex team up before the end of the season? Imagine Doomsday gets out of control, Clark is weak, and Lex can't face that monster on his own. Lex gives Clark either his heart back or a perfected clone of it to get him back to full strength, if not more powerful than he's ever been before. And the two take on Doomsday, sort of the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of scenario. Overall, guys, while this episode was not quite as eventful as the first 3 this season, in no way does that make it a bad episode. The acting was still top-notch, the establishing shots and wide views of landscapes were perfect this week as well, once again showing the incredible quality of the cinematography throughout the series. The Kyle and Chrissy main plot, while giving way to some nice heartfelt character moments, felt like a massive slowdown from the breakneck action we had from week to week earlier this season. I thought Superman's return, while emotional, was somewhat rushed. This was the episode to bring him back in, but having him just show up at the beginning of the episode, not even a minute into it, even dressed for the funeral, it could have been more impactful. I threw around the idea of him making his triumphant return when John and or Jordan was in trouble, or even just waiting to bring him back in the scene where John was trying to stop the fire. Not a huge deal, and I am glad that Clark is now back and we get to go into the final 6 episodes of the season with a vengeance. One final thing I wanted to throw out there, the new suit was slightly underwhelming, might have just been the low lighting, but the colors are way more muted than I would have liked. Maybe it's as much of a reference as we are going to get to the black suit, and the new symbol and more detailed texturing with all of the mini House of L symbols do somewhat sway my opinion a bit. But with all of that said, guys, I want to know your thoughts on episode 4 of Superman and Lois's final season down there in the comments below. Did the slower pace and focus on side characters impact your enjoyment of the episode? Do you think Superman will eventually get back to full strength? And do you think we will see the comic-accurate suits for both versions of Superboy? Just let me know your thoughts on all of this down there in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.